Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Carefulist, the podcast. I'm Katie Christophic, founder of The Carefulist. Today, we have Beth Meek with us, and she is a champion for the midlife caregiver. Welcome to the show, Beth.
Oh, thanks, Katie, for having me. I appreciate it.
I am really happy that you're here. So let's just start at the very beginning and hear your caregiving story.
Okay. Well, first, I'll tell before I do that, I'll just say that I am a certified holistic nutrition and health coach turned champion for the midlife caregiver. And I help those women who are supporting and caring for others, loved ones, and many times it is more than one, but at the same time, they're quietly running on empty themselves. And I help
Mhm.
her renew her energy and things like that by redefining self-care as the support she needs to make it through the day in this unpredictable life that she has now. Um, and so that she doesn't lose her own health at the same
Yes.
time. And so this all started for me after 2 seasons of caregiving. One about 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly when I was called in, but I am from Western New York. I now live in Western Canada and did at the time. My mom got ill with Parkinson's and dementia. I flew back and forth as much as I could until I couldn't anymore and
Right.
had to relocate myself. Um, I like to say I lost my job during that process, but I didn't lose my husband. And it was a difficult time. And in November of 2017, my mom passed, and I came
Right.
home. Thank you. Yeah. It was that inevitable course, which they all aren't all, right? But
Right.
it was. And I was exhausted and burned out in all of the things. I was all of them. As a nutritionist and a health coach, you would have thought that I might have not been, but I knew what to do. I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the capacity to do what I
It's
knew to do.
different
Yeah,
when you're in it. Right.
absolutely. It's so
Yeah.
true. So, I I knew what to do, took care of myself, but the thought that was nagging was there are other women out there who are doing what I just did, but
Mhm.
don't know what to do and don't
Yeah.
have that help. And so I had to pay the bills, got a job back, la la la, kept going. And in the mid 2024, a friend of ours, my husband's and mine, had a stroke. And she was in the hospital and therapy and all this good stuff. But when she came out, she was ready to be released. She needed some place to land. What she had aphasia. What happened to her was the communication part, not the mobility part.
Okay.
So she lived with us for 2 months. And in December 2024, we said goodbye to her. And this is the other side of caregiving. She's able to be living on her own now. And so that was very exciting. But in the new year, 2025, is when I knew that I wanted to help the family caregiver take care of
Mhm.
herself. So my caregiving experience was that twofold, and it was rough going on both ends, both times.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that struck me that you just said was that you were flying cross continent back and forth to try to provide care. And a lot of folks who are going through this experience maybe have somebody who lives across town, or my parents were 2 hours away. So it wasn't super far, but it was far enough that I couldn't go in an evening,
Yes.
right? Adding a flight is an entirely different circumstance.
Yeah.
I I am just my mind is boggled about the logistics and the expense of that.
Yeah. That was a challenge, um, at best. Um, and yet I can remember knowing that there was no other way to do it, that this was
Yeah.
what I needed to do. And I also remember when I decided and had the conversation with my husband that I needed to stay there. Um, might not have done that the best, um, one of the things that I do remember that I didn't do as well as I might have is set some boundaries for
Mm,
myself and my husband. But the
yeah.
fact is, I remember when I decided I needed to stay there, and Steve was supportive of that. And I remember my mom's one of the conversations she had with me, she said, Beth, you need to be home with Steve. My mom, till the end, knew me and my family, and that. So
Mhm.
we were very fortunate that way. She had Parkinson's and dementia. I don't know if I mentioned that, um, but I said, Mom, I'm where I need to be now, and Steve
Yeah.
is okay with that. And she never mentioned it again. And I remember thinking that's what she needed to hear. And
Yes.
that's, she needed to know that I was where I needed to be. And I knew that. And she was comfortable with that.
Hmm.
And I think that also was the support she needed. It was what she needed to hear at the
As a
time.
mother, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that your children are not in the long run going to be harmed, right? And
Yes.
their happiness.
Yes.
I mean, their health and their happiness as a parent is the most important thing to you.
Yes.
And yeah, I think she was grateful to have that reassurance that in the long run, you and your husband were going to be okay.
Yes. And yet
Yeah.
that I was able to be there to help
Right.
her, right?
Yes.
You're right, she wasn't putting herself first, but I think she needed it to be that way. And
Yes.
so anyways, that was a challenge and financially, of course. And then that
Hmm.
contributed partly to my inability to take care of myself. I was away from my natural support system. I was away from my husband. I was away from my kitchen, my grocery
Hmm.
stores, you know, all of those things that we take for granted.
Yes.
So, anyways, and not that it would have made it easier. I'm not saying that it's easier if you live next door to your mom or your mom lives with you. That's
Hmm.
just a whole different other set of circumstances. The circumstances are
Right.
different based on the situation.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You said something else that struck me. You kept your husband, but you lost your job.
yeah,
Um, that is becoming a recurring theme, the employment theme that I'm
yes.
hearing with these conversations, myself included.
Mm,
Um, Either losing the job for the duration of the caregiving or because the caregiving is impeding on your ability to be somewhere physically, or, with grief and loss, if you need more time after someone has passed.
mhm,
In the US, for close family, being a spouse, a child, or a parent, places will give you 3 days, which, okay, you can attend a service and some things in 3 days, but you can't clean out a house. You can't settle finances. You can't sell a car. All of the things that go into the logistics of losing someone, never mind all of the emotional
yeah,
components.
yeah. The grieving, right?
Yeah,
And I suppose nobody is going to be able to give you enough time to grieve because that looks different for everybody.
absolutely.
But yeah, losing your job, caregiving is hard on your job, on relationships, on finances, on emotions. I mean, it just doesn't, it touches every area of life. So yes, what that did is, and I understand the place I was working needed a present manager. At the time
Mhm.
I was manager, and at first I lost that role. But what the good side of that, the silver lining of that was that I was able to go back to them. And they did say, come back when things are quiet for you and you can come back to work. And
Mhm.
they were able to give me a role back. But it
Oh,
is
that's
hard.
good.
Yes. So I was able to go back there, not in the same position, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I part of me didn't understand it at the time because it was another layer of something I didn't need to be handling, right?
Yeah.
But I did understand it. But the side of the relationship side, I mean, it's hard on families, like
Hmm.
siblings that are dealing with the mom's illness, or aunts and uncles or whatever the situation is, not just
Yes.
spouse,
Right.
or that relationship or children. And Steve and I don't have children, so we didn't have that layer. But yeah, relationships are hard, but I didn't lose my husband. Now, was it a struggle? Was it hard? Absolutely. The distance and the lack of communication or the ability to communicate at a distance. But I do like to say that I lost my job, but I didn't lose my husband because so many people are looking at so many different losses other
Yes.
than their loved one, and some are relational.
Yeah. Yeah. The grief extends beyond the diagnosis and the care and the potential passing if your person does not survive what they're dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah, there are divorces, there are falling outs.
Yeah.
It caregiving at its best case is extremely stressful.
Yes. Yes.
And that, pivots to something that we were talking about before we started recording,
Hmm.
which is, how do we reduce the amount of stress? And, what do we do to help people prepare ahead of time?
Yeah.
And, that answer looks a little bit different depending who you ask.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also depends on, as we were talking about, if you if you have the time to prepare. There
Mm,
are caregiving circumstances that just kind of happen and come on you, like an unforeseen accident or something
mhm.
like that. An illness such as my mom's possibly is a bit more prepared, able to prepare for, although we did not. We didn't have
Yes.
the difficult conversations. So then the other side is, how do we help caregivers take care of themselves and not not let caregiving cost them their health
Yeah.
when they're going through it. And I know you know the statistics. I'm sure that the statistics are terrible for um, carers, the person who's being cared for, the loved one, outliving the caregiver.
Yep. And the older you are as the person providing care,
Yes.
the more likelihood there is that um, they will outlast you.
Yeah. And that to me is really kind of where the rubber meets the road.
Yes.
There needs to be something that helps the caregivers, whether it's tools or resources, um, or conversations or planning. And like we said, planning is one side of the coin, and possibly tools and resources and conversations where the people that can make a difference
Mhm.
are no understanding that self-care for the caregiver needs to be a part of the caregiving equation.
Yeah.
It's not a I like to say that I think society views self-care and caregiving as mutually exclusive, that you can't do them both. They can't coexist. And
Mhm.
that's incorrect. And that it's not doesn't make caregiving sustainable. That they have to go hand in hand. They actually care self-care actually makes caregiving sustainable. It
Mhm.
actually allows for caregiving. And until we
Yeah.
really recognize that and help the caregiver do that for herself, we will continue to have a problem.
Right. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to dive into that a little bit because one of the frustration points I hear from folks is I know I need to be taking care of myself and doing a better job, but I don't know how. I don't know with what time. So I know we're going a little bit out of order, but since we got to that, let's talk about it. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on how someone works that into their schedule?
Well, it is a challenge. I am the first to admit that caregiving is a sacrificial season,
Hmm.
but it cannot sacrifice you and your health. So we have to figure out ways, and I think I've done it in some ways, that the caregiver can understand the importance of her taking care of herself
Hmm.
and find the time. So, I think it starts in the mind and how we understand self-care and how we understand our role as caregivers.
Yeah.
Um, we cannot see our role as caregiver as 100% caring for that loved one. There's got to be an understanding that self-care, first of all, is not about massage days and spa days. It is about the simple little things. It's about taking the time in the morning to check in with yourself. What do I need today? It's about the little things, making sure you get a shower, um, and making sure you have some tools that you can rely on that speak to your needs, inspiration, whatever it is, whether it's texting a friend, whether it's I don't know, a book that you're reading of devotions or inspirations, or some of the tools like that I've created, they're digital so that they can be with the caregiver when she needs them for inspiration, but it starts in the mind. If she doesn't believe she's worthy or worth taking care of, like she cares for the loved one, she won't, and or she'll feel guilty. There's got to be an understanding, a realization that she has to take care of herself in order to caregive.
Mm.
And like I said, I think that starts in a mindset shift that it has to come from the mind. It can't start anywhere else. It can't start with you just have to take care of yourself. It can't start from action, right? The
Hmm.
cognitive behavioral is thoughts come first. Our thoughts have to precede our actions, and they
Yeah.
will you know, facilitate different actions. And the other thing I like to do is there's an exercise I call marrying your free time with your to-do list. So we have, in general, not just as caregivers, we have a lot of time that we waste. I'll say, I'll use that word. We don't use as wisely as we could. And
Hmm.
we sometimes have to look for those mini moments in our days when mom falls asleep when during a conversation or while she's watching a TV program.
Hmm.
First thing in the morning while mom is still sleeping, and I use mom just because that was my experience, but it could be dad,
Sure. Yeah.
whatever. While they're still sleeping and we've woken up and we're up. Um, we find that the many moments, those many moments, do we need to take a nap when mom's fallen asleep during the television show? Or do we need to text that friend? Do we need to get up and I don't know, take a supplement that we know will help us or start dinner or do something for ourselves? There are some people I know who are able to leave the house when their loved one is still resting. So if your mom is sleeping in the morning still, can you go outside for that quick 5, 10 minute walk or step out on the porch, or the patio and get that breath of fresh air? And I think so often when we're in the throes of caregiving, we don't think of those little things, or we don't
Yeah.
think of those little moments because that's really all we have. We don't often have big moments.
Yeah.
Um, that's
That's
how
right.
I that's how I see it playing out, and that's how I help women with it. And of course, mindset is about talking. So sometimes we have to really work on the mindset. Why do we believe that we should be? Why are we people pleasing? Are we a people pleaser? Um, why do we feel obligated? Why do we not feel worthy of taking care of ourselves? And different things like that.
Yeah. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about those little items that you're talking about that only take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, small chunks of time, but then also being flexible about them.
Yeah.
And so when my kids were little, I was always a shower first thing in the morning person, but
Yes.
that didn't work all the time with them and what they needed and their schedule. So then it became the goal is to shower sometime today.
Yes. Yes.
And when does the opportunity present itself? And okay, everybody's down for a nap or everybody's at preschool and I don't have a meeting right now, so I'm gonna hop in the shower, or it's 10 o'clock at night and nobody needs me right now. I'm gonna grab one.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. Like with Valentine's Day this month and Super Bowl, I've been thinking a lot about the things that we would normally be doing if we
Mhm.
weren't caregiving. And Valentine's Day and Super Bowls often bring people together, or you go out on a date. And it's
Mhm.
allowing the season to be different. It's
Yeah.
allowing, maybe Valentine's Day is a dinner in, or maybe it's just not celebrated, or maybe Super Bowl, instead of watching the Super Bowl because it brings back some memories of what you're missing, you
Mhm.
put in a movie together with your loved one, or whatever
Mhm.
that looks like, but thinking outside the box to
Yeah.
those things remind us, right, of what we're missing. And if we can be flexible and say, okay, this year is going to be different. Next year might look different. Next year might look different for a whole host of other reasons, right?
Right.
So being flexible and allowing it to look different this year or today. Like you said,
Mhm.
maybe you don't take a shower until 10 o'clock tonight, today, and that looks different. And you're used to, I am a morning shower person too. So, it kind of throws things off. But if you can't, maybe you just throw a baseball cap on and a sweatshirt and you're okay.
Dry shampoo is not just for the person you are caring for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Get a couple at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Do it together.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that the truth? Dry shampoo is something for whatever reason, I did not know existed before we were taking care of my mom.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, we can't get her in the shower anymore. And for a while, my dad was able to take her to a local salon and they would wash it and all of that. But eventually, she
Yeah.
couldn't leave the house. And then it's like, well, what do you do? And then, of course, dry shampoo. And I thought, oh my gosh, I guess I have seen that, but I never needed it. So it didn't register. It's
Yeah.
like car ads. You don't pay attention to them until you need a
Yeah.
car.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Why you'd normally just take a shower and shampoo or,
Yeah.
whatever. So until you need something, it's like, oh, that would be really useful now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, so when you were, and I'm going to specifically pick this part of your journey with
Okay.
the traveling back and forth because I think that's the most stressful.
Yeah.
Um, were there moments of joy? Because it's easy to find joy when times are easy. It's harder
Yeah.
to find it at the most complicated
Mm.
portion of your journey. And you know what? Sometimes it's not there, and that answer is okay too. And
Yeah.
I like to ask that question so that the folks who are listening know that they are not the only ones feeling the way they feel.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Joy was hard to come by when you're going through, everything that caregiving means, including the anticipatory grief, right? It's not even you're looking at your mom anymore. You're just watching her decline, right? And the role
Yeah.
reversal, all of that. Joy is hard to come by. I suppose there were a couple things that brought me joy. One, being with my mom and
Hmm.
being able to spend that time with my mom and then my family members who still live back home. Um,
Hmm.
but the other thing is, I recall the travel. I love to travel. I love to fly in a plane. And one of the things I love most about traveling is when I can do it by myself because it it was my time to be alone. I am an introvert, and so I refresh by being by myself, doing
Yeah.
what I need to do. Close my eyes, read a book, listen to a podcast, doesn't matter. I get to choose, right?
Hmm.
Nobody else's preference. And
Yep.
so I'm married and working when I'm in Canada and caregiving and with my mom and everybody else when I'm in Western New York. So travel gave me the joy of being by myself. And I read books and I listened to things I wanted to. And I enjoyed the rest and the respite that offered prior to to whichever direction I was going. So
Hmm.
that did offer me something that a lot of people don't have when they're
Yeah.
right next door or living. So yes, that did bring me a lot of joy.
I very much appreciate and identify with that answer. Um, I mentioned before it was a 2 hour car ride to my parents.
Yes.
Oftentimes my family, my husband and my children came along because they wanted to see their grandparents and their
Of
cousins and their
course.
aunts and uncles and things. But there were times I made that trip by myself.
Yeah.
And it was, I was driving. So obviously, I was paying attention to what was happening, but it was nice to just give my brain a break.
Yeah.
And when my kids were young, I had a job where I would travel a couple times a year within the States, and then I would fly to Europe once a year at least. And I made a joke to a colleague at one point that, there's something lovely about being 35,000 feet in the air, where, I mean, I couldn't do anything about anything if I wanted to. So
Mhm.
I may as well just give in to this uncomfortable seat and
Yes.
appreciate that I have 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is,
Yes.
that I can just sit here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is the blessing of that. It came with
Right.
other challenges. And I guess
Yeah.
that's where caregiving, depending on the circumstance, each circumstances offers its share of blessings and challenges. And I guess
Mm.
when we look at it that way, it helps make caregiving sustainable and doable because we don't feel like all we have is the challenges.
Yeah.
Um, because we sometimes we need to be reminded, caregiving or not, we need to be reminded that we have a lot to be thankful for. And there's a lot of positive on that scale where sometimes the negative or the challenges
Hmm.
feel like they're outweighing everything else.
Yeah. It's very easy to get sucked into the drudgery of every day, the importance, depending on what your person is dealing with, but particularly for dementia, the importance of sticking to a schedule and helping
Yes.
things be as predictable as possible and
Yes.
familiar and all of that. It can feel like Groundhog Day to continue our February theme.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. And meeting them where they're at. Um,
Yes.
every day, every moment seems like can bring a different place, where they're at. And then other health challenges can make that deteriorate on a given day and then kind of swing back to more normal. Um, and and that's where flexibility, you talk about flexibility, maybe not showering in the morning. Well, flexibility comes with each day is completely new and you don't know what might what might meet you.
Right. Yes. And for people who are planners, boy, that's daunting.
Yeah, that's me. That yeah. What helped me get through that, not being a planner, was not being at home. So
Mm,
that separation, so
yeah.
home signified work, work time, get up
Yep.
time, husband ready, pack a lunch or whatever. Those different things are that planning part of my day would have been.
Hmm.
Being separate from that, being in a hotel, there's nothing more unpredictable than being in a hotel and not home and not schedule oriented than being in a hotel. So
Yeah.
I suppose that, and you're helping me see some silver linings to what I experienced. So not being with my support system and not being at home actually helped that planner part of me that really would have wanted things to be a little more structured. I'm very structured.
Yeah. It, I think at the base level as humans, we need structure. We crave it.
Yeah,
And when you feel like you're in this constant state of free fall,
yeah,
um, it's very disorienting and it's really
yes,
hard to be able to regulate yourself, let
yes,
alone, regulate someone who, you know, you're caring for.
yes. It's a constant state of uncertainty, right?
Yep.
Never knowing what information might come at you, what your loved one might look like, what phone call you'll get when you're not with them, right?
Yep.
And that anticipation, we talk about anticipatory grief, but that anticipation of anytime anything changing,
Hmm.
yeah, so that's yeah, it's a stressful season, as you've said. If nothing if it's not a stressful season.
Yeah. People use the phrase, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I always kind of pictured like, this is ridiculous, but it's true, an octopus over my head who just kept dropping shoes. Like he had eight at least. And I was like, when is this guy going to leave me alone?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's very true. I've never thought of it that way, but I guess sometimes our lives do look like there's more than two shoes because you think of, okay, there's two, right? But I've never thought of that. You're right. The sky is falling, right? And there's just multiple shoes. Doesn't matter that you
Yeah.
only have 2 feet.
Yeah.
Shoes just are dropping at any time and any number. Yeah, you're right.
You didn't think of it because you're normal.
No. Anything, anything and laughter is so good and so important
Yeah.
when you're caregiving, right? And to think of
Yes.
these little analogies. So I hope whoever's watching today, if they're getting a little laugh, a giggle from this too, or thinking like as an octopus above
Yes.
them, as opposed to just two shoes being able to drop.
Right. Yeah. Oh, laughter is the key. I mention this once in a while, but the name of this show I actually had inspired by Mel Brooks. I'm a Mel Brooks fan. I love comedy, and Spaceballs is one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
And he does this bit where it's like Spaceballs the lunchbox, Spaceballs the coaster. And so when I was thinking about doing this podcast and trying to come up with a name for it, I thought, the thing that got my sister and I and my dad and my husband, like got everybody through the experience of taking care of my mom and dementia specifically, we had to laugh. It was a survival skill.
Yeah.
And so this is Carefulist, the podcast. So we've talked about your journey and we've talked a little bit in your introduction about what you're doing. But I would like to talk more specifically about the concept of the burnout breakthrough and what you're working on.
Okay. Well, the Burnout Breakthrough is a part of my signature program called the Care for Me toolbox.
Mhm.
And everything I do is about helping the caregiver learn to take care of herself and how to do that as we talked. And it is a journey. But the Care for Me toolbox is, like I said, my signature program, but it's this large animal kind of that isn't complete yet. It is on my website, but it
Mhm.
is not really complete because it's so large. So,
Yep.
I had someone has helped me in my business, and I'll say, why don't you pull parts out of your Care for
Mm,
Me toolbox so that you can start helping people and they can be started feeling the relief before this
yeah.
big thing is available. So the burnout
Launch
breakthrough is
tools at a time.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And why not? I don't know why I didn't think of that, but sometimes we need help thinking outside the box, right? We just said
When
that.
you're in it, it is hard to see what's right in front of you. It's so helpful to have somebody to talk to and point out the obvious things that you miss. I have the
Yeah.
same problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Point out the obvious. And we need that in caregiving as well. Like, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
But in business too, it's not like, you're the only one when you're a caregiver that can't see the obvious in front of you. So I pulled out the burnout breakthrough, that burnout and stress part,
Mhm.
because I realized, in my experience at least, I feel that there's a couple things like that's common to every caregiver. Now, there are a lot of things that most caregivers do experience, but burnout and guilt, in my opinion, are two of the big ones. So I
Yep.
started with burnout, and what I decided to do is, as a coach, I was going to create this big program, membership, meal plans, teach everybody how to eat salads and make smoothies because I'm very plant-based,
Mhm.
healthy, and I felt that that was part of what could help her, and I still believe that. However, I said to myself, Beth, would you have had the time or capacity for this when you were caregiving? And the answer was absolutely not. I mean, I didn't do it and I knew how to do it and knew what to do.
Yeah.
So I sat back for a little time and I thought, what did I need? And what
Mm.
I needed was something that met me where I was. I didn't need to schedule anything. I didn't need
Yep.
an hour video, things like that. I needed little pieces of tools that I could do when I was waking up in the morning. I could do in a doctor's office. I could do waiting room, or I could do in the
Mhm.
hospital, sitting vigil next to somebody's bedside, or,
Mhm.
wherever. So the Burnout Breakthrough, like my other tools, are simple, doable, practical tools, many videos, audios, and many, I mean 2 to 4 minutes, like not longer.
Yeah.
PDFs, guides, journal prompts, repair scripts, because part of the Burnout Breakthrough is we can be short-tempered when we're
Mhm.
burned out. So we might be
Yeah.
short-tempered and need to know what to say and not even know what to say to someone. I'm really sorry. Doesn't maybe cut it. So I've got some repair scripts as well. And it helps the caregiver be inspired. It meets her where she is. What does she need? Maybe she needs repair scripts. Maybe she needs just to stop and journal a moment. Maybe she
Mhm.
needs to figure out how she can move forward, and not, and deal with burnout and not be burned out anymore or whatever. So these are all tools and resources that help her where she is, wherever she is in that journey
Mhm.
and wherever she might be in her day to feel better and get relief. I also like to call them mini respites, a
Mm.
getaway without getting away. Most caregivers don't have an opportunity to take a weekend away
Right.
or a week vacation or whatever that might look like,
Mhm.
a getaway, right? We call them getaways because we all need them. But I call it a mini respite because it's the getaway without getting away.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I have that. Let me check my notes. Yeah, I think that was really what I
That's
wanted to
great.
say about that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I really appreciate the approach to the mini respite because the fact of the matter is the majority of caregivers don't have someone who can step in.
Hmm.
Um, that's not to say there aren't people in the orbit who could,
Yes.
but they don't.
Yeah.
So to even have an evening or a few hours is a real struggle. So to have something that comes in short snippets where they can get rejuvenated without having to worry about the logistics or all the
Yeah.
work that goes into creating instructions and making sure people know what to do. And then you're away and you're worrying and you're getting 25 phone calls. So it's really not relaxing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
that's
almost
fantastic.
worse. Sorry, excuse me.
That's okay.
Like a respite like that is almost worse than just staying at home
Oh,
sometimes,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And I know that there needs to be a balance, but
Mhm.
there are some times where, you know, it's better not to and just to stay
Yeah.
and relax and like be flexible, like we talked
Mhm.
about, allow it to be different.
Right. Yeah. And I wanted to be specific about pointing that out because it is not uncommon to try to want to go away and then realize either this isn't going to work or I did it and I'm actually now more tired than I was if I just hadn't done it at all.
Yes.
So
Yes.
finding alternative ways to give yourself that mental break, either to reflect on what you're thinking and what you're feeling, or to read up. on certain scripts for difficult conversations or apologies that need to
Yes.
occur.
Yeah.
Um, and it is perfectly normal to get frustrated and to
Yeah.
lose your temper. Um, Everyone knows you don't want to, you didn't want to, but it
Yeah.
happens. You're a human being who's tired and
Yeah.
scared and worried.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And some of my scripts are actually what you need to say to yourself to forgive yourself for that, just because it's normal. And
Yeah.
there's really no human being, well, first of all, no human being is perfect in any circumstance. But we're when we're stressed beyond measure, really, and we're
Hmm.
dealing with everything that goes along with that. And we really haven't talked a lot, except that we just keep mentioning anticipatory grief. But if your loved one is declining to that point, that grief is so heavy. You
Yeah.
live with that grief every moment of every day, every time you see, every time you hear, every time you talk to them, right?
Hmm.
It's so different than grief just hitting, and I'm not saying that one way of losing a loved one is easier than another, not by far, but that grief
Hmm.
we just um can't talk enough about as far as it being a part of the stress that we feel
Yes.
in caregiving. And having it reminds me too, when you were saying sometimes not doing it is easier. Sometimes when I was flying back and forth, sometimes staying there and not flying back was the easier option, was the
Hmm.
thing, because at a time it was like, well, am I just going to get home and get a phone call, you know,
Right.
or whatever it was. And that's kind of
Hmm.
too how when we did make that decision. But it's, when we are in the throes of it, we we need to be able to figure out how to make those decisions, and decision fatigue, right? We are
Oh,
overly
yes.
decision fatigued. So that's just another decision we have to make. So sometimes it's easier not to have that person come in and just leave it status quo, stay where you are and do the
Yep.
thing, because then you don't have to make any decisions. You don't have to say,
Right.
okay, if I get this call, should I go home? Should I stay out? It's
Mm.
easier sometimes. But I think when we can get professional help, although professional help can have its challenges as well, because we did have professional help for my mom come in and
Hmm.
it relieved me somewhat. But there's a different level to having a caregiver, a professional caregiver come in than just a
Yeah.
friend who says, "Can I sit with your mom?" And I think that could be wonderful as a respite
Right.
at times. But that's something that the caregiver has to measure, the family has to measure
Yeah.
the benefits of that. But the burnout breakthrough is, in my opinion, a great way to get some of that
Hmm.
when you don't have those other options. Because again, it's not this structured, where you have to well, you do have to be in front of a computer or a phone or whatever, but you don't have to schedule a time and make sure Zoom
Yep.
works, and or be on camera for anybody either. You talk
Hmm.
about haven't been able to take a shower today. I don't care what
Yeah.
you look like. I'm not going to see you. You're going to see me if you're watching one
Right.
of my videos, but you know, you don't have to be, you can be yourself, come as you are, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. So for people who are interested in the burnout breakthrough or other tools in your toolbox, where can they find you?
Well, I am excited to say that February is a very big month. We're talking about that a lot. I'm glad we did this, recorded this podcast in this month, because earlier this month I launched my website. And so, yes, it is a yay. So I would suggest that's probably the best place to learn more about me, to find the burnout breakthrough, and anything else that you might want to try there. But my website is bethmeekcoach.com, very easy.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I'm excited about that launch. So that would be the best place probably to go.
Perfect. So we will put that address in the show notes for anyone who is interested. And we will be adding Beth's site to our website resources as well. So if you can't remember the name, you can find her on our site as well.
Thank you.
Um, and so, with that thought in mind, is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we say goodbye?
Well, there are two things I try to share with people when I end a conversation, whether it's caregiver or networking or whatever. And one is that we live in a society where we believe that self-care is selfish. And I believe for everybody, but especially for the caregiver, that self-care isn't selfish. And so I would encourage anyone that's caregiving to borrow that belief from Katie or me or anybody else who believes it until you can believe that. Because until you do, you won't take care of yourself and or you will feel guilty doing it.
Mhm.
Um, and secondly, that there is hope and that there is help.
Yes.
And I think sometimes when you're living this journey, you don't feel like there's hope and you don't feel like anybody out there that there's help that can fit your needs. And what I would
Mhm.
say to that is Katie's resource list, the Careful list, and what I have to offer, just two options of places that have vetted and have done the research for you that you can go and find what meets your needs or talk
Mm.
to a person like Katie or me or many others that are out there. And we can help find that resource, that help for what you need. But
Yes.
hope is hard to come by when you're caregiving. So I like to encourage people that there is hope and that there is help.
Yes. Oh, thank you for saying that because there is. There are 63 million of us, at least in the US. Unfortunately, I don't know the number in Canada. But there are millions and millions of us, even though it seems like you are in it alone. And you're not. We're here and we pull no punches. We share the good, the bad, the ugly
Yes,
in a completely judgment-free zone.
absolutely.
So, with that in mind, if you do need any resources, you can visit us at carefulist.com and we will see you next time. Take care.